A couple hit by a natural disaster.
It was very devastating. It's very shocking to lose a house.
Can their luxurious new home survive a perilous journey across land?
It still gets very, very intimidating.
And through busy waterways?
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
Hauling this harbor house will be nothing short of one massive move. The city of Vancouver, a sprawling coastal metropolis. Doug McClelland and Tony Tucker have lived here since 1987, but not on land. They were the proud owners of a custom-built floating home in Cole Harbor and would never consider swapping it for the life of a landlubber.
It's a great lifestyle. It's amazing. We're right downtown in the middle of Vancouver, and when you come home at night, it's like living in the country.
But while away on a Christmas vacation in 2009, disaster struck.
There was a monumental amount of snow. It shut the whole city down. And so much snow built up on our roof that it got top heavy. And eventually it tipped over on its side and it crashed down on top of a sailboat that was sitting beside it.
It was very devastating. It's very shocking to lose a house.
With their worldly possessions submerged, Doug and Tony were left to pick up the pieces.
I don't think either of us considered for a moment that we would do anything else except to rebuild.
And rebuild they did. Doug and Tony's new aquatic mansion will be even bigger and more luxurious than their old home.
See, it's still a bit of a construction site.
It will have a fitted kitchen, an office, 2 bathrooms, and huge floor-to-ceiling windows.
So this will be the back of the house. It faces out onto the open water. You'll see the mountains, you'll see the boats. It'll just be a spectacular view.
But first you have to get it to your marina, Doug, and it can't be moved over land. Doug and Tony's house is being built in a special boatyard on the Great Fraser River. When completed, it needs to be moved 35 miles to reach their mooring in Cole Harbor Key in Vancouver. While their house is designed to float, no one knows if it will survive being towed on an extremely hazardous journey down one of the busiest and most turbulent waterways in the world. To add more pressure, construction and harbor mooring costs are racking up.
We're pouring so much money down the drain, and so we need to get into this location and get back to a normal sort of person's life of paying only one rent.
Building the house will set Doug and Tony back $250,000. Moving it and the moorings a further $75,000, bringing the grand total of this daring project to $325,000.
Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they'll love me. I just hope I can pay it off in the end.
To make sure it's money well spent, Doug has hired one of the world's top naval architects to design their house. Alfonso Sotres has built oil rigs and ships, but a floating home throws up a whole new set of challenges.
This particular one, slightly floating, is going to be quite interesting. We'll have to counterbalance it quite carefully.
To make the floating foundations for the house, the crew has encased giant blocks of styrofoam with waterproof concrete. Pretty much nothing can sink them. But things aren't that simple for Doug and Tony's new house. It's so tall, it's top-heavy. So Alfonso has made the foundations much heavier and deeper to lower the building's center of gravity. The extra concrete should keep the house rock steady. After months of intensive construction, the crew must weigh the house to check it sits level in the water.
We're going to measure the weight of the house and the location of the center of gravity.
The house has been designed with a beautiful viewing deck, but there's a complication. It makes the back end lighter than the front. One strong wave, and this house could end up like the Titanic. So the team must lift the house onto special jacks to work out how its weight is distributed. They can then balance the house out by moving furniture inside. They can add extra ballast where it's most needed. The crew will lift the house onto jacks with a special crane, usually used to raise ships.
I have never seen a house lifted by a big boat lifter before, so I'm sort of paranoid that the house is so heavy. Sounds sort of dangerous to me.
With the lifting straps under Doug and Tony's $325,000 investment, crane operator Ken can prepare for liftoff.
It still gets very, very intimidating. When you pull back on the controls, you see the house has gone past you and the hull's coming up and you're looking, you're going, oh boy.
The bravest member of the crew has to reach under to position the jacks.
We can get you to just slowly go down on ones and twos and take the tension off of them.
Now, the moment of truth.
This is our measured, and it comes, I would say, pretty close.
You had me scared for a minute.
Their calculations were perfect. With additional ballast, the house will balance evenly. The next test, will it float? They'll find out soon enough.
Everything seems to be coming together, but I can't help but be impatient because we really want to get it all finished and moved.
Coming up, can the crew launch the 110-ton house into the water?
The marine engineer hasn't got it floating right. I want my money back.
Without it capsizing? In Vancouver, Doug and Tony's new look floating home is finally ready to launch. Today, the team must carefully lower the 110-ton luxurious home into the fast-flowing and unpredictable Fraser River.
Somehow, the situation lends itself to getting more and more nervous.
Homeowners Doug and Tony have come to the shipyard to watch. They're anxious.
The most challenging and most nerve-wracking part of the whole thing is the move. We have no control there, really. I mean, once it sets sail, we just have to cross our fingers and hope that it arrives at its destination safely.
To launch boats, the yard has an enormous mobile crane, but it's not built to lift large homes. Its awkward shape could cause the house to swing out of control. To stabilize the house, crane operator Ken must add more lifting straps. It's vital Ken raises the house slowly to keep it level and stop it from swaying.
This is more like a security blanket for me because I don't want anything to go haywire on us. Anything can go wrong. I mean, there's always a possibility of a strap breaking.
Ken keeps a close eye on the house as he lines it up with the water's edge. One wrong tug of the joystick now, and this home could end up with a view of the riverbed.
Certainly paid all the engineers and architects enough. If the marine engineer hasn't got it floating right, I want my money back.
That's getting pretty close to 6 inches.
Ken slowly lines the house up over the water. And touchdown.
Well, I'm quite happy to see that's floating very level. That was the biggest concern.
With the home floating nicely, the team prepare it for the biggest, wettest trip it'll ever make.
Could be a happy ending tomorrow.
Happy ending. At long last, my God, wouldn't it be wonderful?
And the man chosen to guide it to Doug and Tony's mooring is Tug Captain Ryan Hansen. He's worried about today's conditions.
There was a bit of a swell coming across, but it's supposed to be dropping off. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, though. We'll see once we get out there. Okay, we're ready to go.
Ryan eases her out slowly as they embark on the most dangerous part of the whole move. The further down the river they travel, the tighter it becomes. Ryan must be extra careful steering the house past log booms strewn across the river.
Oh, the log booms closing in on this little section of the river here. So just have to make sure we got room to get past.
Thousands of logs line these banks. Every year, boats hit them, causing serious damage.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't roll, just go out. There's a log boom right in the middle of the channel, and it was kind of closing in on the other, towards the other log booms, kind of getting sideways in the channel. So we only had a little skinny patch to get through. It's close, it was tight.
That was a close call. But Ryan has yet to hit the open ocean, where things can quickly take a turn for the worst.
The potential is for wind and roughness, and we don't have any control there. This is the dangerous part.
Coming up, will Doug and Tony's dream house make it through choppy waters? Or will it plunge to the depths? In Vancouver, Doug and Tony's new custom-built floating home is heading out to the open ocean. All of their savings have been poured into this project, and they're starting to feel the strain.
The whole process is a bit nerve-wracking. There's potential for anything to happen.
Tug Captain Ryan has safely guided the home through the riverways. Now he faces the dangers of the ocean.
On the whole coast, I've probably seen some of the biggest, roughest waves. And I've had water right over the whole boat.
The house is now heading north up the Strait of Georgia. This is open ocean, and a westerly wind is picking up, causing a huge swell. Its full force is hitting the side of the house, pushing it off course and threatening to swamp it. To avoid the effects of the wind and the waves, Ryan must change course and sail into the swell. To get back to Vancouver, he'll have to tack backwards and forwards all the way up the strait. This course will take more time, but should keep the home's beautiful interiors intact.
This is going to be the most challenging part of the trip. We have to get around the corner with the swells that are out here from this morning. It's as rough as we want it.
If these waves get any bigger, they could breach the walls and flood the house. Floating homes aren't built to withstand ferocious sea journeys and need protecting from rogue waves. So Ryan starts his zigzagging maneuver to beat the swell.
Made the turn now, so it should improve, but I don't like seeing the water getting down near the bottom there.
From here to Cole Harbor, Ryan needs to constantly monitor the conditions. If they get worse, he may have to turn back. And it isn't long before they find themselves up against yet another obstacle, a 364-foot high one.
It's a very, very tight shipping lane coming in under the Lionsgate Bridge, and so just a bit of nerves on those issues.
We have to trust in the tugboat captain's skills.
Ryan calls control to make sure he's safe to head under the bridge and into the path of fast-flowing currents.
Yeah, we're probably 10 minutes away from the bridge, just upstream here. We're staying on the north side of the channel.
The house is heading into the narrow confines near the Lions Gate Bridge, but the tide draining out of the inlet makes the currents here extremely choppy. Pick the wrong course now, and the currents could throw the house onto the rocky shoreline. So Ryan needs to speed ahead and plot a straight route. Once safely through the Narrows, the tug must slow down so they have complete control of the house for the final stretch. It's a critical time for Doug and Tony's floating home.
All the water from Vancouver Harbor and Burrard Inlet has to drain in and out of there. The currents can run quite strong, so you have to be aware of what the current's doing.
Ryan needs to fight any oncoming currents to avoid being thrown onto the rocky banks or into the wake of oncoming tankers.
I don't want it any rougher.
The floating home makes it safely through the currents. Now, the end is in sight. Cole Harbor.
There's a whole bunch of very expensive boats all jammed in there. That's challenging too because you have very small, tight spaces. So that's going to require a lot of finesse.
Coming up, can Doug and Tony's floating home make it to its final mooring without colliding with yachts worth millions of dollars? Doug and Tony's luxurious aquatic mansion has survived a precarious lift, launch, and trek through treacherous waterways.
It's a long process with a lot of variables, but until the house is actually in the slot with all the ropes tied up to the dock, it's not a finished deal.
The team's final challenge is to guide her into the harbor without denting these million-dollar yachts. And to add to the pressure, the boat owners come out to watch the house arriving.
This huge yacht on the end here belongs to the owner of the marina, and so as long as we don't bump it.
Ryan leaves the tug to the second in command and jets off to scout out the harbor. Doug is there to greet him and point out the obstacles.
So we're going just on this side of the White House up here.
So the porch goes in,
No,
the porch is out here, so the head end goes in there.
Ryan sees that there are only millimeters to spare.
There's just so many other boats in there and everything's so tight. It can move pretty fast in the wind, and then if it bumps into a boat or a yacht or something.
It gets tense as Ryan and the marina crew try to steer the 110-ton home through the narrow waterway to its mooring. The maneuver is tight, but the home sails in without a scratch.
Good, everything looks perfect. We're there, it's tied up. Feels good.
It didn't sink. It got all the way across the bay down the river, and they felt it.
I feel pretty excited. It feels like the end of a long journey.
Finally, they can crack open the champagne to celebrate many more years living on the high seas. One month later, and Doug and Tony are already enjoying their new floating home. It's a fabulous view. with elegant furnishings and sumptuous sea views. They now have a home to turn their nautical neighbors green.
One of the great kind of fun things is we got to buy all new furniture, everything from art to dishes to blankets and towels, and so it's like a whole new home.
But there's still work to be done.
We're still working to get the house perfectly level, which it isn't quite yet, and there's a few other odds and ends to reach perfection.
Adding extra ballast to the front of the structure and rearranging some furniture should see it floating level in no time. It's only now that Doug and Tony fully appreciate all that they've been through.
We lost our home, we lost everything, and to come back and to get it back, what a joy.
It was an emotional experience because you start out with this tragedy and then you end up working your way through this process.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. With the help of so many people, we end up with a fabulous house that's the house of our dreams.
Thanks to the architects, crane operators, and tug crew, their floating house is now a harbor home.